I'm taking a ton of chemistry over summer break. Like 4 classes, all I can think about every day is how much I wish I were back at my parents', spending my days lounging around or studying stuff I actually want to study and not stuck in a lab, stooping over a burette doing my 20th titration that week. It's not all that bad though. For the first half of the summer, all I have are labs every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's not until July that the difficulty ramps up and my last semblance of free time goes on vacation. But that's not important. The chemistry lab is fairly efficiently set up. All the students have their own drawer full of glassware with everything they need. The system isn't perfect, but I've been fastidious about making sure that if I borrow extra glassware from the reserve, I return it when I'm done. I noticed fairly quickly that there was something odd going on. Every time I pulled out the equipment needed for that day's lab, all the pieces had already been labeled. The writing was really messy, but trying to write on a non-Euclidean surface is tricky. And hey, less work for me. The first time I noticed this, I had assumed that it was leftovers from the spring session. That assumption was challenged immediately in the next lab, when all the labels had been changed to fit the chemicals we were using. Stuff like sulfuric acid and sodium hydroxide are standard and can easily be explained away as leftovers from spring, even if they were always updated to the concentrations we were using. But some of the very specific chemicals used absolutely could not, especially the ones that were used once the entire semester. Before I start explaining how I figured out there's not another chem lab, I should mention that my roommate and I carpool together. I only have the one class, but she's taking a bunch of classes. In fact, for some reason, my chemistry lab and her anatomy lab are connected by a room full of chemicals and chemical disposal. No clue why the two are connected, but chemistry and biology share a floor in this building, so it's not totally out of place. Whenever I have to dump something in the disposal, I stick my head in and wave at her. Anyway, because of the carpool situation, I end up spending a lot of time on campus with no schoolwork. I don't mind this since I am currently going to take the JLPT in the future, and I don't concentrate well at home, so the extra time to work is somewhat appreciated. We usually get there at around 8:30 and leave at 5:30. I hang around the labs because it's quiet and the chairs are comfortable. This is how I know there's absolutely no morning class. Any night class would temporarily be unable to correctly label my equipment because they'd be doing a lab I had already done that day. Also, my class ran on a 3-day schedule, so that kind of ruined the possibility of class running on the days we weren't there. One day, one of my classmates mentioned the labels and I wanted to hug her. I never brought it up out of fear of sounding absolutely insane, so seeing others notice it made me feel so much better. I told her about my deductions, paraphrased to not ramble, and a TA who was listening and chimed in and told us there were absolutely no other classes held in this lab, and that it was all just leftover from spring. I told him about the labels changing, and he just shrugged. I later pulled up the software you use to enroll in classes, and when I searched for another summer chemistry class, sure enough, he was right. This was the only session of this class running this summer. While I spent time pondering this, I wouldn't say that it consumed me. Sure, it was weird, but I mostly just liked the convenience. That all changed one day when I pulled a beaker out of my drawer and saw 0.1 m phosphoric acid written on the label. My blood ran cold. That was my handwriting. I write the lowercase letter D in a very distinctive way. It looks more like the quarter note you see on sheet music than a letter. I absolutely did not write this. Never mind the fact that we hadn't used phosphoric acid in the lab before today. I would never write out the concentration unless it mattered. Who or what had written this? I looked at it closely and realized that it was not an exact one-to-one match for my handwriting. It was too practiced. I could see slight differences in the curves of the letters, and the spacing between them was just a little bit too far apart. If anyone else had seen this, they would probably think it was mine. It was actually more uncanny when I stared at it closer, noticing how closely the writer had tried to mimic my penmanship. A sudden realization hit me, and I pulled out my phone with sweaty hands. I prayed I would be wrong. I had been taking at least one picture of every lab to send to my boyfriend back home. In all of these pictures, the labels were legible. I looked at the first picture, and the writing was still messy and totally distinct from mine. As I swiped through the photos, I felt like I was going to be sick. As the photos got closer to the present time, the writing on the labels got closer and closer to my own handwriting. It was slow. First, it was the way the arches on the letter M changed from vaguely jagged to very smooth, just like mine. Then the spacing got closer together. The little details slowly culminated into Monday's photo. That writing, omitting the letter D, had mimicked mine as closely as the writer could. I zoomed in and noticed that the letter D was smudged like the writer had tried to write it the way I do, but gave up and did it like they normally would. I looked around the classroom and noticed several classmates staring at their glassware the same way I was. I did that day's lab with a sense of foreboding. I tried to concentrate on my work, but handling the glassware with the mimicked writing on it was making me feel ill, so eventually I tore it off and labeled it myself. As soon as class was over, I ran through the connecting room and told my roommate that I was going to stay at school for a while, so she could just go home without me and I would take an Uber back. She asked why. I had just complained about being bored now that I was done with my Japanese workbooks, and I muttered something about wanting to hang out with a new friend. Her eyes lit up. She had been trying to cure me of my terminal asociality for a while, always telling me to talk to more people and make new friends. I felt incredibly bad, but what could I possibly say? I was investigating a serial labeler who had my handwriting. She would have me committed. So I lied and quickly cut the conversation short to hang out with my new friend. I ended up hiding in the depths of the library. I felt ridiculous having to hide, but if lying felt bad, then having to lie more about why I wasn't hanging out with my new friend would feel worse. I didn't make my way back to the lab building until I got a text from her asking how I was doing and that she had ordered delivery, so I should get something on the way home. The building the labs are in technically never closes. I had a classmate last semester who was always tired because he manned the front desk at 3 in the morning. This may not have been the case in the summer, but this building was so large and empty on the upper floors that I could find a place to hide if need be. I did end up hiding, but it was a half-hearted attempt. There was a nook in the lobby that was easily visible from the stairs, but if someone took the elevator, and most people do, they would not see me at all. There was a table in this nook, but I sat on the floor, back up against the windows that stretched from the ceiling to the floor. I was unsure when the writer would come in, so past 6:30, I half-heartedly played solitaire on my phone and strained my ears to hear if the elevator would ping signaling that someone was arriving. Around 7 o'clock, a different class slowly started trickling in, and they all went down the hall opposite to where my lab was, so no luck there. The only guy who took the stairs regarded me with a strange look as he walked by, but that was the only interaction I had with that class. When the class let out at 8:30 and all the students left, the third floor was stiflingly quiet. I felt like I could hear the blood flowing in my ears. This suffocating silence lasted for hours. It was about midnight when I really needed to pee. I hadn't heard the elevator, and no one had come up the stairs, so I decided to very quickly relieve myself. When I got up and started heading towards the women's bathrooms, I noticed that the laboratory's lights were on, which was so strange I forgot about the reason why I got up in the first place. The lights in the common areas were always on, but the labs were almost always dark. I peeked into the window of the lab as discreetly as I could. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to see, but it was certainly not the sight in front of me. At first, I thought I was looking at the anatomy models from the connected lab. They looked like humans, sort of, except just like anatomy models, you could see their organs. Each one of them had a different piece of them exposed. One had a large hole in its chest, heart rhythmically beating like the absence of a rib cage, and skin didn't bother it at all. Another had a hole in its abdomen. I watched its intestines writhe in the open air. The worst one didn't have a face. It looked like someone had taken a human head and put it through one of those slicers you see at a deli counter. With no lower jaw, its half-formed tongue lolled out of its underdeveloped mouth, and so much drool constantly ran down its neck and onto my shirt. I had been so distracted by the exposed organs that I didn't even look at their faces closely. It was just like the handwriting. They were almost perfectly identical to the faces of my classmates, assuming you didn't look too hard. But when you did look hard, you noticed that little defects started piling up. Eyes spaced too far apart, a nose that was just a bit too much to the left. One of them seemed to have more teeth than humanly possible. I was glad that, for some reason, my doppelganger didn't have a face. I can get past the bleeding flesh and exposed organs, but I knew that if I saw my own face just ever so slightly off, I would dream about it every day for the rest of my life. The fact that they were completely silent just made it worse. Every time I watched them pantomime talking to each other, I felt my skin crawl. Their gestures and social interactions were so stiff that even someone as socially oblivious as I could tell was like they were acting out conversation like they had only seen it on TV. I watched them perform the future lab in a trance. I felt absolutely rooted to the spot. The trance and the silence were broken by the sound of shattering glass. The guy who sits across from me's double, I think his name is Marvin, had accidentally shattered a burette. Just like with real people, every one of those things stopped what they were doing for a second to see what caused the noise. They all stared a bit too long before going back to their work. I watched as my faceless double walked over to help with a strange stiffness to her gait. I didn't stay to see what else was going to happen. They hadn't acknowledged me, but clearly they react to external stimuli, and I wasn't sticking around to see if they noticed me eventually. The rest of the night went by in a blur. I sprinted out of the building and got an Uber home. Even though it was very late when I finally made it to my bed and I was dead tired, I couldn't fall asleep. My brain kept running through what I saw in the lab and coming up with question after question that I tried to answer through the internet to no avail. I was still awake when the sun came up and I heard my roommate leave to go to class. I had been frantically reading about the history of my school, the current faculty, folklore about creatures that looked like you, and had come up completely empty-handed. Eventually, my lizard brain took over and told me it was time to sleep. My dreams were a muddled mess full of unfinished humans and the burning smell of vaporized acid. I didn't sleep very long, maybe 4 hours. When I awoke, I saw I had several texts from my boyfriend wondering why I hadn't talked to him last night like I usually did. I wanted to tell someone about what I saw, and he was the person most likely to believe me, but I just couldn't think of a way to start. I had photographic evidence of the handwriting change, but I didn't take a picture of those things last night. I was simply so overwhelmed by the sight of it all that it never occurred to me. I told him I was feeling very sick and that I wanted to talk to him really late tomorrow night. I told him that what I would tell him would sound absolutely insane and that he should prepare himself. Then I muted the conversation, not wanting to talk to anyone and instead be alone with my thoughts. Since the internet had no answers for me, I went to the library. If there was a disgraced former professor who dabbled in making whatever those things are, then there was sure to be some sort of old newspaper article about them. Perhaps it was a story the university wanted covered up, or it was so old it never made it to the internet. Either way, I was going to find it. Many hours later, I had been asked to leave the library by a kindly librarian who looked like she wanted to say something about the dark circles under my eyes, but obeyed the laws of social niceties and didn't. My search had been fruitless. There were plenty of disgraced professors and breaches of ethics, but they were all of the mundane variety. When I got home, I told my roommate I would be going to class on my own, shoved some goldfish down my throat, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. At the lab the next day, I didn't even bother to open my drawer and instead used pieces from the reserve drawer. I was having difficulties focusing, not only because being in this room made me feel like there was something under my skin. I also had a feeling of déjà vu so strong it was starting to make me nauseous. I had watched those things do this exact lab the other night, but paying attention to the other students around me, I noticed that the way they behaved was actually identical to the way those things did. Now that I had thought about it, my double, even with no face, had seemed to be glancing around the room, deep in thought. Actually, when I first stumbled upon the class, it was early into the lab. Aside from the fact that she had no face, my double had stood out to me early on because she had been rushing around the room, grabbing things. I hadn't connected the dots that she was me at that point and paid it no mind. Surely she hadn't been grabbing equipment from the reserves. I had already not wanted to open my drawer, and with this dawning realization, I wanted to open it even less. I had to though, just like with the handwriting, if I never had the opportunity to debunk my own idea, it would eat away at me. I slowly opened my drawer and I saw the label I had put on the phosphoric acid beaker from last lab, which simply read Phos. I wanted to scream, to run out of the lab and never return to this university. This thing, double whatever it was, had acted out my movements before I had even made them. It had been grabbing glassware from the reserves before I even saw it. How is this possible? If it were just mimicking how I act, it wouldn't have done that. How could it predict that I would be so intrigued by the mimicked handwriting that I would camp in the building to catch whatever was doing it? The only possibility in my mind is that it was acting out the future, but I absolutely refuse to believe it. The shattering of glass caused the low murmur of conversation in the lab to go quiet, and we all cast a quick glance at Marvin, who looked embarrassed and tried to cover his embarrassment by cleaning up the glass from the burette he had just broken. I stayed in my seat. My double had gone over to help, but I wouldn't. One act of defiance could possibly cause this whole nightmare to disappear, is what I hoped. I would stay absolutely rooted to this chair or die trying. And then my left leg moved, followed by my right leg. I felt like a marionette being pulled forward by invisible strings. I fought against it and tensed my body up, but even still, I hobbled over to Marvin. I remembered in a daze how stiffly my double had been walking and wondered briefly if I had stumbled across some sort of omnipotent being who was toying with me for its amusement. Marvin did not look confused by my awkward walk and the look of terror on my face. In fact, he looked completely indifferent to my presence. Before he could say anything, my body started picking up the shards of broken glass on the floor. Whatever was controlling me was clumsy. Instead of lightly picking the glass up to avoid getting injured, I picked it up with all the force in my fingers, like a toddler who hasn't realized they can vary the amount of strength in their hands. Immediately, I felt the glass tear into my fingertips. When I was done picking up a piece, I deposited it into my free hand, which quickly formed a tight fist around it in order not to drop it. I watched helplessly as blood oozed from both my hands and dripped onto the floor. Again and again, I was forced to pick up the glass. It probably didn't take much time, but every piece felt like it took centuries to pick up. When I was finally done, my body threw the glass into the broken glassware bin, and I regained control of it. I looked at my hands. I could see tiny pieces of glass embedded in my palm and fingers. I had been silently crying the whole time, and now that I had control again, I had started to cry more audibly. Marvin seemingly could not hear my cries and awkwardly thanked me the same way you'd thank any classmate you don't know very well. I went back to my bench and went back to work. Even though I was bleeding profusely, no one seemed to care. I forced myself to do things as normally as possible out of fear that control would be taken away from me again. Even though that meant further grinding tiny particles of glass deeper into my fingers as I worked the burette, causing blood to fall into the solution and ruining any possible results. Even though it meant washing out the glassware and leaving it dirtier before. By the end of the lab, I was feeling woozy, but just exiting the room made me feel significantly better. The first thing I did was grab some paper towels from the bathroom and wrap my hands in them before taking a painful drive to the closest CVS and purchasing first aid supplies. The cashier looked concerned about my hands as the paper towels had gotten soaked through on the drive-in. He started to ask me if I was okay, and I told him I didn't want to talk about it. Have you ever tried to dig tiny particles of glass out of your finger with your non-dominant hand in the driver's seat of your Toyota Camry? Not only was it already a difficult task, it was made even more difficult by the fact that operating the tweezers was painful. I don't know how long I sat there doing that. Every time I thought I had gotten it all out, I found another piece. I considered going to the hospital, but even if I didn't have a prior history, I couldn't come up with an explanation for the wounds that wouldn't land me in a psychiatric hospital. After I shot that idea down, I considered driving somewhere scenic and letting myself bleed out. I knew I'd lost a lot of blood. I felt positively cold on this scalding June afternoon. But eventually, after I dug out as much of the glass as I could, I wrapped my hands in bandages and headed back to the university. If I could just get a picture of these things and convince a few others to believe me, maybe someone would face consequences. Next week was the last week of class, and I was certain that those things had some sort of objective, and the end of the class would signal for them to start whatever it was they were created for. At the time, I felt like I absolutely had to press on for fear of running out of time, but now I think it would have been better to just forget about it and accept whatever was going to happen to me was a punishment for interrupting the natural order of things. While I got back to campus, I ate as much food as I could and lay down in my hiding spot after setting alarms at midnight, and every 15 minutes after. I slept like a rock. Even the pain in my hands couldn't overcome my deep slumber. I slept through the first 2 alarms before the 12:30 alarm successfully roused me. While I was still half asleep and walking towards the lab, all the drowsiness left my body when I saw that the lab light was on. I peeked into the lab, and when I thought it couldn't get worse, it had. Those holes they had in their body, they were getting smaller. My double had a forehead now, and I could see the corners of her eyes on the side of her face. The little abnormalities in everyone's faces were slightly less anomalous. Eyes were closer, noses were more centered. The one with too many teeth now had the correct number of teeth, but they were slightly too large. I felt on the verge of passing out. I absolutely needed to get this photo. I discreetly held my phone up to the window, making sure it was silenced in case they reacted to the shutter sound, and was about to take a photo when something unexpected happened. My double had been carrying a flask full of something in her bandaged hands to her bench when she tripped. I couldn't see anything she could have possibly tripped on. It's like her ankle gave out. As she fell, she hit the side of her incomplete head on the sharp corner of the lab counter and spilled whatever was in the flask all over her. I watched her flesh sizzle as the chemicals ate away at it, and as blood gushed out of the side of her head and pooled on the ground. She twitched and writhed in agony, all the while letting out a silent, mouthless scream. All the doubles came over to see what was happening, and a few tried to help her, but as the pool of blood grew larger and larger and her twitching became weaker and weaker, nothing could be done, and my double finally lay still, chemicals still eating their way through her rapidly cooling body. I can't remember exactly what happened after that. I took the picture and called my boyfriend on the way home. I don't know if he thinks I'm insane or pranking him, but the desperation in my voice at least convinced him to drive to my apartment that night. It's now Saturday morning. I'm thankful that, at the very least, I have the weekend to try something to avoid ending up like my double. I don't know who to go to for help. The police aren't any help. When I try to talk to them, my frenzy was so palpable that after an officer heard me out, I later heard him say something into his radio about a psych evaluation. He wouldn't even let me show him the photos, insisting that he had heard enough and would send someone to check out. I left the station as soon as I could. The rational side of me knew that being locked away in a place with 24/7 surveillance was probably the best solution. Yet for some reason, I knew I absolutely couldn't be locked away. It wasn't out of fear of dying or of losing control of my body again. No, it was out of the fear of missing out on something spectacular. It was the same fear that grips the hearts of children when their parents tell them that if they don't stop misbehaving, the trip to Disneyland will be canceled. I lie now in bed, my face contorting with 2 very different emotions. I'm both petrified and absolutely elated, my sobbing flipping to gleeful laughter and back to sobbing in mere moments. I am locked in here. My boyfriend and roommate barricaded the door when my behavior started to become a danger to them. Occasionally, if I spend more than a minute sobbing, my boyfriend quickly rushes in and tries to talk to me. It never works. I always end up crying harder when I see the deep gashes my fingernails left in his face. I felt as if I had been detached from my body, Whatever thoughts were running through my mind were so primal or foreign that I had given up on trying to understand them. I noticed later in the evening that the nearly 50-50 ratio of crying to laughing had skewed, and I was spending more time giddily giggling and kicking my feet in anticipation. I recently heard the two of them talking about calling an ambulance and having me committed. It's a bit unfortunate that my apartment is on the 3rd floor, but I will survive the fall. In fact, if I leave now, I will have plenty of leeway to get to campus on foot and make it to class exactly on time. I'm not planning. I am basing. The carpet under my bare feet is matted with a smear of blood from where one of the bandages slipped, and the smell of cheap antiseptic has seeped into the room like someone spilled a bottle of gin in the closet. Every time I stop moving, I can feel threads tug in my calves, a slow pull toward the door like invisible hands hooking tendons with crochet needles. I'm trying to be logical. I'm trying not to grin. My phone vibrates face down on the floor. I don't pick it up. It's him again, probably. He texts like he argues in person, full of soft questions that make you think you're not being pushed. I want to answer. I want to tell him it's fine, that I'm not going to do anything stupid, that I'm going to stay here and drink water, and we can stream something brainless, and he can hold a bag of frozen peas to my hands while I practice conjugating verbs under my breath. Except every time I breathe, I smell something sweet behind the antiseptic. Warm plastic, the rubber tubing of the peristaltic pump, the ghost of an acid bath steam. You wouldn't think vapor has a taste until it touches soft tissue inside your nose and coats your throat with metallic citrus. There's a little ring of it in my mouth right now, like I licked a 9-volt. I haven't been near a hood since yesterday, but it's here, humid and delicate, as if the lab itself is whistling from 3 floors away, calling like a kettle. My boyfriend knocks. Hey, babe, please. His voice has that edge people get when they're trying to make their tones soft while racing ahead with contingency plans. I can picture the little notches in his eyebrow where he nicked himself shaving last week. I can picture the stubble under his chin and the old scar on his forearm and the way he keeps his keys hooked on his belt loop even inside the apartment because he hates misplacing things. All of that feels so real, it's almost tactile, and somehow still less real than the glide of a glass stopper against a ground glass neck with a faint squeak you feel more than hear, the way you feel a tooth slip out of its socket when you wiggle it with your tongue. I'm not going anywhere, I lie. Scrape of furniture outside my door. They moved the dresser earlier and wedged a chair under the knob. I watched it happen the way you watch a rainstorm through a bus window, distantly, as if my body had lagged. When they backed away, they both looked back at me, and I smiled too wide, then remembered to draw my mouth. My boyfriend flinched. I hated that. Hated the flinch more than the pain in my hands. Hated that my nails did that to his face. Don't call an ambulance, I say. I'll freak. He says something on the other side. It sounds like my name caught in cotton. When I close my eyes, I see the lab lights flare on the other side of the door. Not the wood door, but the thick window in the lab hallway. A box of brightness in a building that sleeps like an aquarium at midnight. My foot twitches toward the sill. I press my heel to the carpet until heat climbs into my Achilles and the muscles cramp and the wave of compulsion passes. It leaves a hunger. It leaves a polished space in my mind where a future sits, arranged like labeled beakers in a row. I open my eyes and the apartment is too small. The ceiling fan ticks. Someone above us drops something heavy. The fridge coughs. Every noise feels like a knock from underground. The world is a series of taps on glass. I scratch the gauze and feel the sting and do it again because the sharpness brings me back into my skin. I keep thinking about the basin in the reserve sink where the glass shards rattle like ice in a blender when you dump them, the way they catch light. It is an ugly thought, and it's also comforting because it's real and solid and not the soft shape of my laugh gasping out when I don't want it to. My roommate speaks up from the hallway. She sounds like she does when she's talking to freshmen who faint at the cadaver smell on the first day of anatomy lab. Gentle, with those protected spaces around her consonants. We're not mad. We're just scared. Let us in. I picture her hands. The nurse hands she's growing into. little crescent scars from autoclave burns. The way she double knots her ponytail before gloving up. She needed me to be normal. I needed to be normal for her. I was until the moment my doppelganger slipped and bled, and I recorded the future with my phone like a tourist in hell. I pick up the phone now. I unlock it. I look at the photo again because I can't not. The image is noisy from the hallway lighting, and the angle is bad, and my reflection floats in the window glass like a jellyfish. But you can see the smear of her hair and the way the liquid climbs up the sleeve and chews. You can see the puddle finding the low spots in the epoxy floor, seeking drains like small rivers slouching toward the sea. If you zoom, you can see the little twist of the bandage on her right hand where one edge lifted and curled, the exact way mine did when I grabbed the doorknob after CVS. The worst part is the posture of the others. They stand like mannequins remembering how to lean. Their bodies tilt toward mine. Their attention is so complete, it's blank. I should delete it. I should smash the phone. Instead, I open the camera and flipped a selfie just to make sure my face is still mine. It is. A swollen, puffy version, but mine. Eyes a little bloodshot. A smear of something that could be dried tears or dried laughter at the corners of my mouth. I stare for several seconds. I do not blink. My eyes begin to sting. The face in the glass resists me like a zipper stuck on fabric. Then the stuckness loosens and my expression changes. Not because I choose to change it, but because something anticipates it. I watch a smile grow and the smile is wrong. It stops one tooth too short. I toss the phone onto the bed and it thuds and slides and lands face down again. I walk to the window and press my forehead against the cool glass. The city is heat hazy, a siren somewhere. A skateboard hits a crack in the sidewalk and clacks. I watch a moth try to batter its way through the patio light fixture across the courtyard, wings worrying at metal like paper rubbing metal. I try to imagine being in any other life, doing any other thing. A long, slow morning. A textbook open to a problem set. The little relief that comes from lining up decimals and watching numbers obey. But all of it is contaminated with the certainty of the lab's schedule, the clunk of the timer, the way the hood sash sticks halfway up and you have to hip bump it. My boyfriend knocks again, lighter this time. "We're gonna get you help," he says. "What if I don't want help?" I say. Silence. Then we'll sit here with you. We'll just be here." That almost breaks me. Something good and soft rises up and pushes against my ribs like a trapped bird. And then, click, something else locks it back down. The lock is deep, and when it closes, I feel the echo in my kneecaps and my jaw. "You should go home," I say. "Both of you." More silence. Then whispering I can't make out. The chair under the knob creaks, just a little. I realize I'm listening for the elevator ding like I listened last night. No, the night before? Time feels like a glass rod that someone heated and bent into a different shape while I wasn't looking. I smell something like pennies. The antiseptic, the rubber, the faint vinegar of packed lunches someone left in a fridge too long. None of it is in this room. I know that, but my nose doesn't. My body doesn't. My body is already turning toward the future like a plant toward a window. I think about the labels, the way they learned me, how what was messy became precise, how each day's script leaned more like mine until the only wrong letter was the D. That smudge feels almost tender now, like evidence of someone trying. I hate that. I hate that tenderness. I hate that in some sharp angle of me, I want to meet the thing that wrote my name on the world and tell it that it missed the note by a fraction, and if it just presses a little softer here, it'll get me right. I fall asleep sometime passed on, propped on the floor with my head against the wall, and wake up hard with drool, sticking my cheek to the paint, and both legs numb from the knees down. The room is too bright. My mouth tastes like I bit a penny in half. My phone says 3:42 p.m. Sunday. I miss calls. I missed messages that stack up like lab safety warnings. Please let me in. Please drink water. Please do not do anything. Please answer. I answer. I'm fine. I text, and the word fine looks fake as soon as it leaves my thumb. But I send it anyway. I am sleeping. Don't call anyone. Please. Three dots then, okay. We're still here. We'll bring you soup later. I put the phone down. I count to 100 out loud. My voice sounds ordinary. That scares me more than if it had sounded wrong. Ordinary means I could talk myself out of this. Ordinary means I could choose. Ordinary means responsibility. I drink water. I nibble at a protein bar that tastes like damp cardboard. I pee. The act of washing my hands is surreal. Blood blooms into the water from under the gauze and dilutes to a pink ribbon, then thinner and thinner until it's clear again. If I keep them under the faucet long enough, nothing hurts. I don't keep them long. I pat them dry with a towel that smells like detergent and our dryer's hot dust. I turn the light off in the bathroom and the fan winds down with that descending whine, and the room rushes back to quiet. The quiet has a shape. It's the exact shape of the lab at night. I'll lie on the floor, again the way you lie on a board to see if you fit the coffin. I close my eyes. I try to conjure any act that would keep me here, tie sheets together and anchor them to the bed frame and to my body, shove my hands under the mattress, ask to be taped to the chair. All of it seems ridiculous, not because it wouldn't work, but because the part of me that could ask is not the part that takes over. The thing that pulled my knees toward Marvin is patient. The thing that writes on glass writes in me, too. It's already dated tomorrow and written the concentration with my hand. I pick up the phone and open the message from my boyfriend and type. Wait for me to calm down, then we can talk. I add a heart because I want to feel like I'm the kind of person who adds hearts. When I hit send, I picture my thumb in one of those little finger traps from childhood. The woven kind you push against and it tightens. The more I try to prove I'm okay, the tighter it gets. The sun slants, and the light in my room shifts to that late afternoon color that makes everyone look like they're inside a glass of tea. The outside noises thin to the casual clatter of a Sunday campus. A bike bell, a car door slam, laughter from somewhere that already feels like a different planet. I let my eyes close again, and the next time I open them, it's near midnight. The building is quiet. The air has that coolness it gets even in summer when the AC runs too hard and everything hums at once. I stand. My body is gentle with me at first, which is weirdly worse than the puppet pulls. It lets me test my weight. My ankles wobble like I slept on them wrong. My hands throb in time with my heart. I breathe. I stretch my calves. All normal. And then the gentleness ends and I glide to the window and listen. There it is. So faint. The elevator. Not here. Another building. But my bones know it. I step toward the door. I do it slow on purpose, like if I go slow enough the intention won't trigger the strings. The chair under the knob presses against the jamb when I twist. It doesn't move. I twist harder. The wood groans, the little screws in the hinge sing, the cheap brass escutcheon plate rattles, and the chair scoots half an inch with a squeal. Outside, my boyfriend's feet thump. He says my name. He puts his hand on the knob from his side. For a second, our hands are touching through metal, and then I let go, and the touch is gone. Don't, he says. I won't, I say, and then I push with my shoulder. The chair lifts and hops. My heart stays calm, like we practiced this. He swears. The dresser drags. My roommate's voice rises, clear now, no softness. Stop, stop, stop. I love you. I tell them through the door. Lock the deadbolt when I'm out so I don't get back in. Don't do this. I'm sorry. The chair slips. The knob turns. My shoulder presses. The door snatches air and swings a hand's breadth, and I slide into the wedge. Hands grab me as hers, but I duck. Something inside me is anticipating their reach by an inch or two and letting me flow where they aren't. It's like solving a lab puzzle. You see the titration endpoint before the color shift hits. You see the line you need before you draw it. Their fingers skim my arms, and the gauze catches on a knuckle and rips and I hiss, and then I'm in the hall and the light there is too bright, and my eyes water and I run. Down the stairs. I could take the window. 3rd floor. That would be faster. But the strings want stairs. They want the rubber mat on the landing, and the smell of bleach at the bottom, and the bounce of the crash bar when I hit the door in a night that smells like hot asphalt and wet plants after sprinklers. Behind me, my boyfriend yells my name, a cracked, terrible sound, the kind that makes your organs twist. I don't turn around. If I do, the gentle part might take control and climb back up and tuck itself into bed and hold his hand, and the other part won't let that happen. The other part has a schedule to keep. The walk to campus is 23 minutes when I'm late and 12 when I'm on time. Tonight it takes no time at all. Time steps aside like a person holding open a door. The campus at night is a bowl of blue. The lampposts wear halos full of gnats. Somewhere a sprinkler ticks. A rabbit darts across the path with a flick like a dropped glove. I know which swipe car door to use at the side entrance of the science building because my roommate lost her ID once and we tested all of them until we found the one that was broken. I press mine and the reader chirps and the lock coughs and the door opens onto the empty lobby where the floor glows faint and the vending machine hums and the elevator waits with its little light like an eye. I do not take the elevator. The stairs smell like a mop, like gray water and lemon, and my feet know exactly where to land to skip the squeaky tread. On the third floor, the hallway is cavern quiet. The lights are on low power and buzz with a threadbare hum. My body walks like I've lived here. Maybe I have. Maybe we all have, in some second life. At the lab door, I stop. The little square window shows me what I expected and didn't. The dark room slowly brightens like a split lid opening, the fluorescence waking in segments. The benches are neat. The hoods are dark. The waste labels are fresh and empty. The drawers are closed, and I can see mine, the one with a tiny chip on the upper right from where I once closed on a clamp. My heart beats, steady, unbothered, like it's reading from script. I touch the handle. Cold. I smell the faintest ghost of acetone. I listen. The building is breathing. My own breath sounds big in my ears. I wait for, I don't know, a sign, a scrawl on the glass in my handwriting telling me to go home. Nothing writes itself. The door opens. Inside, the cold is deeper and cleaner. It wraps my arms, slips under the gauze, leans against the cuts in a way that almost feels like relief. I walk to my bench and pull the drawer. The glides squeal. Inside, everything is nested and perfect. The beakers stacked by size. The graduated cylinders like thin bones. Tape rolls. Sharpie. A torn corner of blue Kim Wipe folded like a note. My labels are there. Made for tomorrow, more gorgeous than they have any right to be. The letters slope exactly like mine now. Even the D is right. I feel something go through me. A little thrill the way you feel when a note sung just right finds the cavity of your ribs and vibrates them. A noise behind me, not a voice. The shift of rubber soles. I turn. They are coming in through the connecting prep room, 2 by 2, like a class file. Some of their holes are smaller again. Some of their eyes fit better. One of them adjusts the strap of a book bag, though there's nothing in it but the motion itself. This is the worst part. The part where I see them recognize the room, and then each other, and then me. They don't gasp. They don't smile. Recognition rolls over them like a shadow of a cloud over a field. No expression, only alignment. My double is last. She pauses at the threshold. Her face is almost finished except for a corner of the mouth that tugs wrong, like a seam puckered on a shirt. She looks at me. The movement is a precision instrument rotating toward a measurement, and then past me to my bench, and then down to my hands. The bandage on her hands matches mine exactly. The same diagonal cut from where I tore the tape with my teeth too early and restuck it. The same places where the gauze darkened in little crescents. She steps forward. It is the same step I just took. The corner of her mouth trembles as if an invisible string is trying to pull into a smile, but someone mis-threaded it, and a giggle rises in my throat because it's hideous and tender at the same time, and I hate it and I love it. No one says anything. There's no sound but the usual ones. The fume hood's low throat clearing, the air handler purring, a click as a relay wakes a pump. I stand still as a specimen pinned to a board. My double sets a flask on the bench, and in the same second, I set my hand down beside it. Not because I choose to, but because choosing is a thing that has been outsourced to whatever is staging this. The others begin moving with more confidence, like actors who know their lines now that they've said them once in costume. Marvin's double reaches for the burette clamp. I put my hands in my pockets to keep from touching anything. The tape in their crunches. I feel the ridged plastic with my fingertips. I feel the little give in the center where it's been used enough to indent. I don't pull it out. I don't need to. The label is already made. A small sound. Not breaking, not yet. The sound of metal kissing glass. The clamped jaws catching the burette crooked. In my stomach, I feel the exact shape of what comes next. Don't, I say. I don't know who I'm saying it to. I am moving before I finish the word. I am moving before I finish the word. My knee clips the card. The wheel squeals. Marvin's double jolts the clamp, and his fingers do the exactly wrong thing any new lab rat does. Tightens the crooked jaw. Metal scrapes glass, a dog biting porcelain. I lunge, both palms up like a traffic cop. Stop. My right hand slaps his wrist. My left hits the stand. The stand skates. The burette twangs, a fishing rod whipped sideways, and my vision tightens to a dime because somewhere in a memory that hasn't happened, I see a shatter and the rain of needles and my own blood blooming. Except it doesn't shatter. Not yet. The doubles freeze. All of them. Still life of lab. My breath fogs the glass of the burette for the briefest blink. In that tiny fog of lips, my reflection looks like a stranger trying on my face in a dressing room. I back away. The air makes a soft ah through the hood slats. My double tracks me with that almost mouth. Her bandage is blotched in the same spots as mine, but somehow her gauze looks cleaner, like the idea of my blood rather than the fluid. If I could talk, I would ask how this is very different from watching an animal figure out the path through a maze. If the maze wrote back, if the cheese took notes on your handwriting. My bench drawer, half open, bumps my hip. The label roll inside peaks like a tongue. I grab it. I grab a Sharpie. I'm not thinking. No, I am thinking, but the thinking is a panic, serrated thing. I slap tape to the side of a beaker and write nonsense. Anything big and wrong so no one can misread. Water. No acid. And no. And then I stop because the D bulges into that quarter note of mine without me even trying. A perfect oval-stemmed and flag like muscle memory curve the line against my will. I tear the tape off. I can feel the string tug for the reuse slot at the end of the bench. Save labels, don't waste tape. So I crumple it and stick it to my bloody palm and squeeze. The adhesive stings in the cuts. The pain is good. It's a plumb line in a funhouse. Look at me, I say to my double. She does. She does with such obedience that it makes me want to punch a wall. Do you copy me or do I copy you? I ask. It's dumb. It's like interrogating a mirror. Silence. Around the room, they stand at their stations like devotionals. Marvin's double adjusts the clamp gently. The human Marvin would chatter. The double doesn't. The absence of speech is louder than any conversation could be. I twist the sink tap. The first belch of water is brown from the pipe. Then it runs clear and cold. I dump my hands. The gauze soaks and turns the color of weak tea. In the corner of my eye, my double does the same, and I see the exact way her wrists angle to not wet the tape too much because wet tape peels. Stop, I say again, but now I'm begging. Please, I am not. I look around at the silent rehearsal. I'm not part of this. They keep doing the motions. In 5 minutes, they're ahead of us by a whole procedure. Marvin's double cleans up a drop of spilled base by folding a Kim wipe in a quarters the way the TA showed us in week 1. Someone else jots fake notes. Another sets a timer that will never beep. A gloved hand holds a beaker under a funnel like a supplicant catching mercy. My double turns, and I recognize the next step intimately. Her ankle rolls. It's not a trip. It's a miscue from a body that hasn't yet learned where its weight lives. She sways toward the bench edge where the sharp counter corner waits like a guillotine. No, I say. I say it hard enough to pop my throat. I throw my shoulder into her. It's like slamming into a half-inflated air mattress. She staggers. The bench corner misses. The flask goes down anyway, the liquid fanning. It splashes my forearms. Cold first. How is an acid cold? And then heat follows like a dog. My skin sings. Not much. Not like in a photo, but enough for every nerve to lean forward and take notes. We both stare at the wet. It glows ghost pale under the fluorescence. You can tell an acid spill by smell if you've been around them enough. This one is sharp fruit and batteries. The doubles do nothing. My double copies my breathing. We are both panting like we ran. I swab it with baking soda from the spill kit because instinct beats fate for a half second. The powder hisses. My palms pop from the heat in the gauze. I half laugh because the science is obedient at least, because the universe will still fizz when you ask it the right way. That's not your job, I tell her. That's mine. She tilts her head. I'm not sure which of us I'm insulting. Okay, I say. Okay. I put the sharper between my teeth and rip off a strip of fresh tape and stick it to a fresh beaker and right hand shaking the ugliest wrong D I can manage. Not my quarter note. A cavity. A loop like a speech balloon. I hold it up like a talisman. You see this? That's not me. Don't follow this. She stares at it. The room takes a breath. And then a hand behind me, someone else's double, reaches around, and without looking, they peel the tape off the beaker and smooth it onto the drawer front in the little neat line where I put labels to dry adhesive before I commit them. And there it sits, my wrong D looking back at me like a tooth in a mouthful of right ones. I back away until my shoulder blades hit a cabinet. I want to scream. I want to bite somebody. Instead, I say stupidly, "What do you want?" My double looks at me. The corner of her mouth trembles like a stitch pulled. The first sound any of them make all night is the small, wet click of her tongue, trying to find the top teeth she just grew. She doesn't speak. Of course she doesn't. In the connecting prep room, a light flicks on. Not overhead. A desk lamp. It washes a square of the floor, a cozy yellow that has no right to be in this sterile place. Keys jingle. The TA's silhouette passes and pauses. He peers into the lab like a daycare worker checking on kids at nap time, and then he sees me. "Oh," he says. He looks surprised the way you look surprised when you find your keys where you thought they'd be, because you knew they'd be there. You need to go home. I don't know what I expected. A reaction. Alarm. Anything. He says it like a suggestion at a salad bar. "You see them," I say. He considers. Shrugs one shoulder. "Get some sleep," he says. "You're here too much." He taps the glass with a knuckle, a little keep moving gesture, and walks away into his pool of yellow like a stage manager sliding into the wings. "Hey!" I slam my bandaged fist on the prep room door. Pain sautés my nerves. My double mirrors the hit on her door frame, a fraction late. The slap echoes. "Hey, what are they?" No answer. The prep room light clicks off. The quiet returns like a heavy blanket. I could leave. I should leave. My scalp itches with the heat of the almost acid. My hands throb. The hinges buzz. The only reason I don't go is because the compulsion that brought me here offers me an awful mercy. It backs off. I'm not a puppet now. I'm in the set backstage while the dress rehearsal runs without me. None of them need me to hit their cues. The danger is gone. I stand there until the fluorescence timeout. The darkness feels like a clean sheet pulled over a body that hasn't stopped breathing. In the black, the faint red status light on the hood glows like a coal. I leave by my bench, where the wrong D on the drawer glows sodium orange from the exit sign. Outside, dawn is not yet a bruise at the skyline. I walk home with the weird lightness you get when you've been crying for hours and run completely out of salt. I expect to see my boyfriend on the stairs, or a policeman, or the neighbor with the dog, named Pickles, who always wants to tell me stories about Pickles' digestion. Anything to force me back into the stupid shape of daylight life. No one is there. The hallway smells like nothing. It feels staged. The door to my apartment is closed. The chair I shoved is back where it goes under the little breakfast bar. The dresser is where it always was. The deadbolt is thrown. The peephole is dark. They know. They moved the furniture while I was gone. They know I'll come back because I always come back. They're good people. They're also not in charge anymore. I sleep 2 hours and then wake to a Monday that's alive with the mundane. Garbage truck beeps, the shriek of a kettle somewhere in the building, someone arguing on the phone about a credit limit, and I dress for class mechanically. Long sleeves, fresh bandages, hair tied back. My boyfriend texts a block of words so thick it looks like a tire track. I don't read it. My roommate leaves a note on the counter in her careful block letters. We love you. We'll meet you after. Please. It is all so normal I almost puke. I walk in on time. The lab smells exactly like it always does at 8:58. Cold, a little like a penny sucked clean, a little like old paper towels, a little like fear. A few people are already at their benches. No one looks wrong. They have their faces. They have their soft human slumps and their stupid water bottles with motivational stickers. Marvin grins at me. There's a tiny white scar on his chin from high school hockey, and I've never noticed it before. The sight of that scar brings me to tears so fast, I have to pretend to cough. You good? He says. Fine, il. The lie is chalk on my tongue. The TA does his little orientation speech in a voice you would use to explain how to fold a fitted sheet to a crowd of toddlers. Nothing in his eyes is yellow. Nothing in his teeth is too many. He's a guy who eats cereal from the box, standing in front of his fridge, reading the back, and thinking about nothing. He dismisses us with a clap. We work. The first 10 minutes are agony because every motion I make feels behind. My body anticipates what my body will anticipate. It tries to double itself. I spill a little. I wipe it. I write a label deliberately slow. I write the D with my quarter note flourish, as if that flourish is a spear I can pin myself to the board with. The room hums. A girl near the hood murmurs the steps to herself like a prayer. The sound makes me want to break her neck just to keep silence sacred. And then it happens. Of course it does. The clamp, the crooked jaw, the allergic tightening. Marvin's hands, the metal on glass sound. I hold the bench like a cliff and dig my shoes into the tile and hold myself back with everything I have. My thighs burn. The urge to go to him is a wire wrapped through me. I don't move. He shifts the clamp with an instinct I've never seen him use. A very human save. That was dumb. He laughs under his breath to himself. Shame slicing upward in a humor the way it does when we survive something we shouldn't have. The shatter never comes. The invisible strings yank and then slack, confused. I grin, feral. Yup, I say, and the syllable shakes because I've just deviated from a future I saw. I work faster now because speed feels like freedom. It's not. It's just speed. 3 stations over, someone knocks a bottle with their elbow. It's not me. It's a girl I've never spoken to. The one with the half sleeve of lilies and the giant headphones. She never actually plays music through. The bottle teeters. Her hand jolts. Exactly the wrong way and bumps it more. It falls. The lip of it catches the bench edge and kisses it. The sound is not loud, exactly. It's neat. The splash is not a wave. It's a sheet, thin and even as it fans. It slides against her, catches her thigh, crawls. She gasps. The TA is there in half a second with the kid, cool as winter. Step back, he says. He sounds like a pilot. The paper towels sizzle. The baking soda hisses. She is okay. Her leggings do the ugly stick-to-skin thing that makes everyone's stomach clench. He keeps saying she's okay, and she is, and yet the ghost of my photo overlays the scene, and for a half second her hair in the corner of my eye is mine, the curl at the end the exact same shape as my curl after I sleep on it wet. I taste copper. The room goes slightly sideways and then rights itself. I stand very, very still. My double died to keep me on track. The script rewrites. The role moved. The understudy went on. An hour in, I realize the labels in our drawers have been swapped. No one notices because none of us look at our own handwriting like I do. The DS on at least 3 benches have a little loop wrong now. Mine are perfect. Mine are my DS. I know because I check like a superstition. The wrongness moves through the room like a cold front you can feel on your gums. At the sink, I wash a beaker twice. The glass squeaks under my fingertips. I hold it up and see my face double in the curve. I think about shattering it just to prove I can still choose. I put it down. At lunch, the TA signs the roster with my D. The curve is right. I watch him do it and feel nausea right up from the soft spot under my ribs. He doesn't notice me watching. He taps the paper stack to make the corners neat and leans it against the wall, and the sound is obscenely normal. Pap, pap, pap. By the last hour, I have forgotten to breathe twice and jolted because my body remembered without me. My boyfriend texts, outside after. My roommate, a heart. I stare at those little messages and feel like a glass animal in a hot case. I keep waiting for the accident that kills me because I took it away from my double. It doesn't come. Something worse does. At cleanup, the world puts its hand on my head and turns me gently like I'm on a lazy Susan. I am suddenly looking at the connecting door to the anatomy lab. It's propped with a rubber wedge. A sign is taped at eye level, and no students past this point. No exceptions. The tape curls at one corner. The urge to step over that line is the most physical thing I have ever felt. More physical than sex, more physical than hunger. I feel in my teeth like a cavity. I feel like someone hooked a fish line behind my sternum and gave it a happy tug. I walk. No strings. No papitiers. Just me deciding and it feeling exactly like not deciding. 2 steps in and the smell changes. Chemicals live here, too, but biologies are greasy and sweet. Fixatives. The cloying note that eats your sinuses and coats your throat. I swallow and it doesn't go away. The anatomy room is bright in a way the chem lab never is. Light bouncing off white tile and stainless tables and plastic that wants you to think it's steel. Models of hearts and larynxes grin open-mouthed. The cadaver room door is closed. I don't want to go in there. I want to go to the little office at the far end where my roommate sometimes sits and writes up her notes with a thermal mug in her hands. The door is cracked. Inside, on the desk, a notebook lies open. It's not hers. It's a stockroom log, cheap spiral, the cover bent and soft at the corners like someone thumbed it while thinking. The writing slants like a habit. Dates, item numbers, quantities, check marks. On the top of the page, today's date. The line reads, labels synced, students synced, disposal, none. Under it, as if written by a different person, my D shows up. Quarter note, my name, date, next Monday. Disposal 1. My stomach falls through the floor. I run my finger over my name like that will smudge it. It doesn't. The ink is dry. I pick up the notebook. The page before has a line for last Friday. Disposal 1. I know which one. My half-faced other. The page before that. Disposal none. The page before that. None. A slow appetite. Appetite learning cutlery. I look up and she's there in the doorway. My roommate. Real. Human. Her eyes widen when she sees my hands and she drops the mug and there is coffee all over the floor and her shoes and the bottom of her scrubs. And she says my name like a question and I want to fall into her like a hole and ball and tell her I'm scared and I need her to take me somewhere like an animal hospital and get the burrs out of my brain. I open my mouth to say, I found a book. I found evidence. It's real. We could. And then she smiles at me the way you smile at a drunk friend who's being loud in a quiet place. It is so kind. It is so useless. We should go, she says. They're closing up. They never close, I say. She picks up the mug and shakes her foot and coffee freckles the tile, and she laughs at herself, and the laugh is exactly her laugh, and I want to throw up. She looks at the notebook in my hands like she's just now noticed it. Hey, don't mess with her stuff. What is this? I hold it out. It's nothing in my hand. It's huge. A log. Whose log? She shrugs. Prep? Duh. I don't know. Does that say my name? My voice rocks off pitch. Does that say? She looks. She grins. Oh my God, you're D. Did you do that? I didn't, I say. I'm telling you I didn't. Okay, she soothes because in her head right now my temperature is too high and my eyes are glassy and I didn't sleep and she's reading all the signs that mean don't escalate, keep it cool, say yes and guide. She takes the notebook from me with soft fingers, sets it down on the desk, closes it. She does it with the same kind of deliberate neutral you'd use to put a knife down on a counter between you and a volatile patient. We'll get food and sleep, and then you can tell me everything. Okay. The TA appears in the hallway behind her. He has a smile this time. It is small. It's the smile you give a bunny so you don't scare it. Hey, folks time. Something goes soft in my knees. Not weakness, relief. Like the class period finally ended and I can stop pretending to be a person and go outside and breathe hot air. It makes me laugh in a way that shows too many teeth. My roommate touches my elbow. The spot is neutral, not intimate. The kind you'd use to steer someone through a door. Outside, my boyfriend is on the bench with his hands wrapped around his knees like he's trying to wring water from them. He sees me and stands, and his face does this horrible wet opening. He strides toward me, but he stops like he hit an invisible fence when he sees my expression. I wonder what I look like. I wonder if I look finished. You came, he says. Thank God. Yeah, I say. My mouth feels like plastic. I hug him because I remember how. He flinches again, and it hurts like being told you flinch when someone kisses you, like you heard a reflex you didn't know you had. We go home. We should leave town. We should burn the building down. We should call someone's mother. Instead, we order takeout, and I sit on the floor and let the sound of them talking wash over me like dishwater, lukewarm, harmless, full of little chunks that brush your ankles and then slide away. I eat a bite. It is all texture. My phone buzzes with a calendar notification. Final next week. I dismiss it. A moth bashes the lamp. That night I dream about writing labels with my eyes closed. My hand knows where each beaker is by heat. Each letter lands in a groove worn by 1,000 futures. I wake up and my fingers are curled like they're holding a pen, and the gauze is stuck to the cuts, and when I peel it I leave tiny islands of skin on cotton. I laugh. It sounds like a faucet starting full blast and turning itself off midstream. Tuesday is ordinary in the way that makes me think the world is buttering me up to slide the knife in. I go to class. No doubles at night. Wednesday, same. Thursday, I sit in the lobby until 2 in the morning, and the lab remains dark, and I start to think maybe I did disrupt something. Maybe the act of blocking the corner of the bench pushed the whole train off the tracks, and we coasted to a stop without an explosion. Friday night, I go anyway. I tell no one. The hallways hum. The stairwell smells like mop and old sneeze. The lab light burns when I round the corner. I knew it would. The knowing is a clean, gentle blade. Inside them, not as many holes. The margins where face meets face smoothed. The almost mouth on my almost face is a mouth. The corner is still wrong. A little tug, like a D done by someone who practiced and could do every part except the pressure at the end of the stem. She looks at me, and her eyes are my eyes, and for the first time, I see something like emotion in them. It isn't kindness or hatred. It's recognition without relief, like looking at a passport photo of yourself taken in a different mood. I don't say anything. I don't do anything. Neither does she. We watch them work. It is unnatural and beautiful the way a spider web is unnatural and beautiful if you saw it spun in a clean room by a machine that learned by watching a spider once. A sound behind me, not the TA. Footsteps, human ones. My boyfriend breathless, my roommate right behind him. He took my spare key. He took the risk. He's here because he loves me enough to be stupid. I turn, and the look on his face when he sees the room is something I'll be ashamed of forever because I made that look happen, and also because that look is part awe, part terror, and part inevitability. The doubles turn toward him like flowers turning toward a lamp. Jesus, he whispers. What the? Don't, I say, because I don't know what I'm telling him not to do, but a future is already moving toward us like a conveyor belt. The my double that is almost me steps forward. It is like watching a video of your own gait slowed by a third. She stops a foot from me and lifts her hand. I don't. She touches the bandage on my left hand with one gentle knuckle, a tap as light as a moth landing on a shirt. The contact is a circuit closing. It shoots through me, a clean blue current. For a second, every line in the room lights up with their trajectories. Every stand, every clamp, every bench, every corner. I see where mistakes will happen if they happen. I see where they don't. I see the logbook page with next Monday circled. I see the word disposal like a smile. I see myself, what? Burning? Blinding? No, not that. Something quieter. Something like erasure. No, my boyfriend says louder. He takes a quick step, as if he's going to wedge himself in the way like a doorstop. 3 doubles shift in a way that is not threatening and also blocks him gently. He stops. Humans are not built to push through a wall that looks like your physics lab group. I can fix it, I tell him. I can. My voice cracks. I thought I could fix it. How, he demands. Desperate. Furious. His hands shake. I love him in a way that hurts my ribs. Maybe I can't, I say. The almost me lowers her hand. Her mouth finally chooses a side, and the corner settles into the right place. The sight is indecent. It's like watching someone tuck a breast into the right part of a bra. My stomach tries to turn itself inside out. The compulsion that used to jerk me like a bad puppeteer now just lays its hand on the small of my back and nudges. Not now, the nudge says. Soon. I leave with them. I let them walk me to the stairs and out into the hall and out into the night and home. I don't remember the walk. I remember the moths in the lamplight. I remember my boyfriend walking on my right and my roommate on my left like bodyguard escorting a valuable drunk through a casino. I remember the feel of the spare key in my pocket like a secret. I sleep with my shoes on. I wake with my shoes off and don't know who took them. Saturday is a blur. Sunday's edge cuts clean. Sunday night, I write notes. Not on labels. On paper. I write, don't let them eye in. I write, if I am smiling too long, I am lying. I write, if I say I'm fine, ask me TO, write AD. I hand the paper to my boyfriend. We sit on the floor. I hold a Sharpie. The first 2 DS come out right because I am thinking about pressure and flourish and the music note shape. The third one slumps. My wrist loosens. The loop is fat. He looks at me like I shot him. I look at the D like it bit me. I've got you, he says. I'm not leaving. You should, I say. You should go now. I don't sound sad. I sound like a receptionist advising someone politely they've come to the wrong office. You should go home and lock your door and not answer if I knock. If I text you to say I'm outside, don't come. I'm not. Promise me. The words turn raw. My eyes sting. He takes my face in both hands like a movie, and his hands are the temperature of a sink full of dishes. Promise, I say. I promise, he lies. He's a bad liar. I kiss him. It tastes like metal on the soft underside of my tongue. In the middle of the night, I get up and walk to the window and look down and see the drop and think clinically about whether the bushes would slow the fall and whether my ankle would snap or my spine would bruise and whether any of that would change anything important. Probably not. Pain is not an offering. It's the tax. I go back to bed. I wake up exactly on time. I brush my teeth. I make the bed because it's easier to return to a made bed if you survive. I put on long sleeves. I put the wrong D label in my pocket like a relic. I kiss my roommate's forehead where baby hairs stick to skin. I touch my boyfriend's wrist where his pulse lives. I don't cry. Tears feel like something the doubles would imitate, and I want one thing left that is not teachable. I walk to campus, and the day is so bright it looks fake, like someone turned up the saturation. The building greets me with a hum I feel in my molars. Upstairs, the lab waits in its aquarium light. The TA looks at me with a blank that is almost kind. Morning, he says. Morning, I answer. We start. Everything is perfect for 42 minutes. That's the worst part. The smoothness. The way the world rolls under my feet like a treadmill at the exact speed of my gait. My labels are right. The hoods pull just enough. The pipettes click politely. And then my body does a small, ordinary thing. I wipe sweat from my temple with the back of my hand. The bandage sticks. The tape catches on a hair. The sting makes my hand jerk. The jerk bumps the stand. The stand hops, the burette twitches, and the clamp squeals, and there it is, the little seed of catastrophe we plant everywhere just by moving through the world. I grab it too fast, too forceful, and the stand goes more. It tilts. The end of the rod hits the bench lip and seesaws. The glass kisses the edge. The kiss is a sound I will hear when I'm dying. I steady it. I think, there are 100 little lives in the next 3 seconds. In 3 of them, I spill. In 1, the TA saves me and my pride bleeds to death later that semester. In 4, Marvin makes a joke about Butterfingers and I laugh, and a bead of blood peeks through my gauze and nobody notices. In the life I am in, I take my left hand off the stand to swipe hair again. I do it because somewhere in the deep machine of me the program is already run and the little tick box next to left hand swipe hair is clicked. The universe applauds. I see myself about to do it, and in that sliver, I put my wrong D label on top of my left hand like a skin graft. I do not know why I do it. Maybe because I want one thing to be mine. My left hand moves. The tape sticks to the gauze. The sharp letters look up at me as my wrist passes under my eyes. The loop of the D is wrong. It is wrong enough to be a wedge. It is wrong enough to be a seed. My hand touches hair. The corner of the label lifts and catches a strand and holds and pulls in a very small tug. The tug turns my head a fraction. The fraction moves my shoulder. My shoulder taps the stand. The stand shifts a hair. The glass chooses a path. It goes, softly, like an animal laying down. The flask on the bench is not mine. It's the girl with the lilies. She's not wearing leggings today. She's wearing jeans. Denim drinks. She gasps, but she's quick. She hops back, her hands up like a magician showing he's got nothing, and the splash that would have mapped her thigh maps the floor. The TA is there in a breath. He says something calm. I say something I don't hear. My heart is a fist beating at a door. My wrong D has a smear where my hair dragged it. No one dies. For a second I think that's it. I broke it. The prophecy had to put a check mark somewhere, and I made it check the wrong box. And then, as we're cleaning, a minute before the bell, I see the logbook sticking from the prep room door. It is not the same stockroom book. It is a fresh one. The cover is stiff, the spiral unbent. The page is blank except for one line at the bottom written in a hand that is nobody's and everybody's. Disposal 1. No date. No name. I breathe. The air tastes like pennies. The lights buzz. The TA claps and says have a good one, and someone groans about finals, and someone else complains about parking, and Marvin invites me to trivia, and the girl with the lilies laughs, and says only if chemistry questions are banned, and all of it sounds like birds. I don't leave. I stand with the waste jug in my hand, and I try to feel the difference between today and last week, and there isn't one other than the hole in me that looks like a D. Hey, my boyfriend says from the doorway like he snuck past a guard. You okay? No, I say. It feels good. Yes, it feels good too. Both truth. I don't know yet. We go home. The sun is a physical object pushing on my eyelids. Enulp. I wake to the smell of soup because my roommate is making something that can't be screwed up. They sit on the floor with me, and we eat with spoons that cost 99 cents from the dollar store, and the soup is too hot, and we slurp anyway, and it scalds our tongues and makes us laugh, and we sound like humans. Later, after they sleep and the apartment noise goes quiet and the night tick noises begin, fridge, pipes, the faint scritch of a bug somewhere in the wall. I get out the Sharpie and I write my D over and over on the back of an old lab report until the shape becomes automatic again. It doesn't feel like safety. It feels like practice. I don't know who I'm practicing for. When I turn the paper, the ink has bled through. Each D is a faint, ruined echo on the backside, blobby and imprecise, the way I imagine my name would look written on skin that isn't finished. I lie down on the floor and listen to the building breathe and wait for the tug. It doesn't come. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. Maybe it will crawl back in through a laundry vent 6 months from now and tap my knee while I'm doing dishes and leave me somewhere stupid and bright. If I am brave, I'll tell someone. If I am smart, I'll never say a word. If I am honest, both of those sentences are labels that will peel off and steam and leave glue on the glass. I think about what was written in a book. Disposal 1. No date, no name, a promise or a threat or a placeholder. If you ask me right now what I believe, I would tell you I believe in labeling things correctly. I would tell you I believe in watching your hands. I would tell you I believe in the way a future looks when you stare at it too long. It starts to move. The elevator dings in my head. Just a phantom. Or not. It sounds like a penny clicking on marble from very far away. I close my eyes and let my breath count itself. I picture my wrong D like a knot I tied in a string. I picture someone's patient fingers untying it, slow, careful, without breaking the thread. I am both petrified and elated, always forever, because fear and joy are the same body part flipped back and forth. I hold both like a beaker in each hand. I try not to spill. There's a corner of the bench waiting for me in some room at the end of some hallway. There's also a soft chair and a person who loves me and soup too hot. Both are true. Both are labels I stick on the side of the day, and maybe if I write them sloppy, reality will have to work a little harder to copy them. I laugh. Quiet. I cry. Quiet. My hands throb in time with the building. I close my eyes and the lights come on inside them.